he started to grow that after he hit that tremendous home run off of Raleigh here last year.
2 outs and the base is clear in the last half of the 4th, and now Evans wants plate umpire Russ Goetz to take a look at the baseball. Art Fowler is Billy Martin's personal pitching coach. He follows him everywhere. Had him in New York, then he comes out to Oakland, and it has been alleged by a cynical few that Fowler teaches all of his pitchers how to throw the spitball.
Well, the one adjective you used, alleged, it does mean maybe, does it not?
I think so.
Well, that's the wrong adjective because they do throw spitters on this team. It's not alleged.
Supposedly what they do, rather than loading it up with spit, which they do sometimes, is that they put ivory soap on the legs of the uniform pants, which blends in and you can't see it, and you're able to touch the leg and get that substance from the soap and load the ball up effectively that way.
Right, or Vaseline, any substance, and they're masters at it. They're able to do it well.
But here's a curious thing. If everybody on the staff is throwing spitters, which are supposed to produce ground balls, why does the A's outfield record so many putouts? Actually, if you look at the way in which the A's defense records outs, relatively few compared to the rest of the league are on ground balls.
Well, first of all, ground balls are usually off sinkers. A spitter does not have the true spin of a sinker. It'll come down a little bit, but you can throw it up and it can sail on you. It'll sink at times, so it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get ground balls.
A 2-out hit for Evans, so I guess it depends then upon who's throwing the spitter. A guy like Perry or a Whitey Ford, who they always said loaded them up, they use that specifically to get double play balls and to get the ball hit on the ground, but I guess you don't have to.
Well, they were able to control it, and they had a way of keeping the ball down. If you can keep it down and get it to sink, obviously you're going to get the grounder. But you also have to get ahead of the hitters. You've got to get ahead strike one before you can start throwing the spitter. If you're always behind, you can't afford to throw it because you're going to end up walking a guy.
Jim Rice has a walk and an RBI single to continue his torrid hitting. 4 hits for him last night. And now Heath wants to talk to McLaughlin. There's nobody throwing in the Oakland bullpen.
I think we had some words here. I think Rice said something to McLaughlin. And now Heath went out there to talk to McLaughlin, and something was said that somebody didn't like.
No punches thrown, just friendly little team meeting for both squads.
Get to know your neighbor.
Cliff Johnson is talking to Tony Perez out there. A few folks came over the wall from the Red Sox bullpen, trotting in from right field. If I were McLaughlin, tangling with this guy would not be my idea of a good time.
I think Evans was probably saying that he was throwing a spitter because the one pitch before the base hit, it bounced about 48 feet out there, and I'm sure that might have been one that was loaded up.
And that was the first pitch after Evans had asked to see the ball, so maybe McLaughlin said, you think I'm throwing it? I'll show you one for real. I'll really load it up good.
Right, it could be.
Let's see if we can pick up what set it off.
Well, he was talking to Heath. Now, I don't know what's going on, unless Rice is mad at Heath and he's coming out after Heath. That's what is probably going on.
That's what it appears to be. Words between Heath and Rice. That's what it is.
Exactly.
Rice shoved the plate umpire, Russ Goetz, and if Goetz had the short fuse, he could have thrown Rice out of here.
That's right. That could be an automatic ejection. I'm sure he didn't tell him he didn't like the way he wears his uniform.
Even that face bespeaks strength, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. I tell you, though, there's nothing to be gained by having an argument like that, because all you have to do is get hurt and ask Rosemar from Detroit about what happens in situations like that.
There's a breaking ball of some sort, depending upon who you talk to, legitimate or not legitimate. Yeah, there was that brawl a while back. A week or 10 days ago, the Twins and the Tigers, and Dave Rozema jumped right into it. He's out for the season as a result, and he was having a good season for the Tigers.
Believe me, there is nothing to be gained by it. The best that's going to happen is that you walk away and nothing happens. The worst that's going to happen is someone's going to be out for the rest of the year or seriously injured.
Any interesting brawls you remember from your days with the A's?
Not personally, but as much as I was on teams, that it seemed that whenever you turned around, we were doing something with Detroit. I can remember Sonny Siebert here pitching for Boston and having run-ins. When Billy Martin was managing Minnesota, we had him.
Here comes
Billy wants to know what's going on.
I would guess with those A's ball clubs, the best fights were probably in your own clubhouse.
We had a few of those. I think Billy is a little upset that Bo is, why isn't he throwing the fastball? Does he want, look at him, he's asking him to check the ball.
Now here comes Goetz, and he might run Billy. Billy just showed Goetz up. Here we go. Now Goetz is smiling, though.
I think Russ is saying, hey, I didn't ask to look at the ball. Billy's saying, okay. And now Ralph wants to come out and find out what's going on.
Now what's bothering Ralph? He's giving it to Goetz pretty good.
Ralph is going into his act. I tell you, you know he's mad because he forgot to take off his glasses. He always takes off his glasses when he comes out to argue.
How much of this is psychological on Houk's part, saying, look, if Billy Martin wants to inject his own personality into the game, if he wants to try and charge his club up, I'm not going to sit by passively in the dugout. I've got to counter that.
I think it's showmanship. I think Ralph is not going to let Billy intimidate his players, and he's going to be just as aggressive and go out there and let them know what's happening.
Now here we go between Heath and Rice again. If this doesn't break out into something serious eventually, I'll be very surprised.
Well, it really becomes it's a two-man argument. It's Heath and Rice. For some reason, they're having problems getting along.
Both times the A's have come out of their dugout, and there are fewer players out this time than the first, but there are a few. Cliff Johnson has been the first man out, and he might be the only guy on Oakland's roster that could match up with Jim Rice, and Johnson is playing the role of the enforcer for the A's.
Jeff Newman's got good size, but he's got his hands full with Dwight Evans down there. So I don't know what's going on. Obviously, it has to do something with the baseball and putting the foreign substance on it. We'll watch McLaughlin's right hand before he throws the ball here. They're insinuating possibly he's getting some substance from somewhere, but he threw 2 breaking balls.
Count is 1-1 to Jim Rice, whose batting average now is up over 300 at 303, 7 homers, 28 ribbies. Somebody ought to grab a stopwatch. This may set the record for the longest time at bat. Yaz is on deck. Low 2-1.
Going to Houk and psych Who out. Bo went to his forehead like he was getting something. Threw a fastball. Thrown 2 breaking balls. Rice is determined to watch him closely.
Three balls and 1 strike. We're tied at 4. Last half of the 4th inning. McLaughlin has issued 3 base on balls. He has been victimized by a couple of errors behind him. He has yielded 4 hits. And there's no help in sight because the bullpen is quiet.
Well, if they got 2 catchers down there, so it only leaves, it looks like 2 or 3 pitchers, so they don't have much help.
Son, you're on your own, says Billy. Foul back. Touted youngster for the Seattle Mariners has hit a grand slammer, and in the 5th the Mariners lead Milwaukee 7-1. A grimace from Sal Bando. He feels the pain of his old ball club this afternoon. It's hard to be objective when you're only a year removed from playing with those guys, isn't it? Runner going, and Rice swings and misses to end the inning.
Quality people out there, led by Mark Flair, and so they use them, like you say, for the long relief.
Strike 2 ball, 1-2. Flair, of course, is the classic short man. Now look at this. Russ gets just a typical day at the office.
He's saying, Clifford, I thought that was a pretty good pitch.
It looks like Russ is doing more of the talking than Heathcliff is.
think they all know they're on TV. Let's see what the pitch looks like. Well, could have been questionable height-wise. It would look like it was over the plate.
At the knees, says Russ Goetz. 1-2 pitch. He misses the change. He actually got a small piece of it, but Gedman held on. And Johnson, without further comment, walks away. You know, Davey Lopes told you in the pregame show, Sal, that the strike zone is bigger. At least he thinks so in the American League as compared to the National.